staff development meeting and has not yet been introduced. If that is the case, please stand up and we will. Everything old is new again.
Good morning. So what do I say? You say okay. Where you were prior to? All right. Well, Michael Brown, IT specialist over at Housing Residence Life. Thank you very much. The last 3 years I've been working at Vanderbilt University, but happy to be home, happy to be back.
Specialist in career services, and before that I was a recruiter at Greenway Health. So I also used to go here as a student, so I'm glad to be back too.
Hello everyone, I'm Holly Brown. I'm records coordinator at Admissions right now, trained and stuff. Before that I was acquired with Hayes in Nashville, and I'm also very happy to be back, and that's my husband over there. I retired from West Georgia about 3.5 years ago. This is my 4th time back as a temporary, so I'm really happy to be back one more time.
She is very, very bad at retiring. I don't know. I am not going to be bad at retirement, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just telling you right now. Okay. So yes. Oh yes, we John says we need to acknowledge the chairs. So, ladies and gentlemen, new chairs. Very nice, very nice position here. Yeah, very, very nice. So, congratulations to everyone. Okay, so what we're here to do today, if you saw the video blog message yesterday, sorry about the quality of that, but that's just the way I do things, that level of quality. We're here today to talk about the Engage West results. Now, this isn't an actual rollout in the true sense of the word, because in a rollout, you have a small group of people, generally department level or so, that can have a real conversation about what these mean and the types of things that we may be learning from the results, so that we can develop action items, so that we can do something and develop something further in the next year. We're going to have a little bit of that interaction, and this is where our technical difficulties are going to give us a little bit of maybe even vertigo. I don't know if we're going to have have this problem going back and forth. We have to do the activity actually on the internet. So we're going to go back and forth from the PowerPoint to the internet, and then back out to PowerPoint for the presentation. So we're going to go through this rather quickly, but you're going to have an option to be able to give feedback in this session via your cellular phone, doing Poll Everywhere. So we'll be doing that in just a little bit. But we want to start this really by talking about the purpose of Engage West. So some of you are new this year, may not fully understand or get what Engage West is all about. And it really is for us to look at everything we're doing to define how we can improve or revise things, to provide the necessary information to map and route towards institutional success. Now that's the overall definition, but really what it is about making our work environment better. When we make our work environment better for us, we do better things for students, and we get student success out of that. So it's a downstream effect of doing great things for our work environment and for you. It really leads to better employee engagement and leadership development. You'll see some of the things in this presentation about that engagement and the types of things that we're working on that will give you a better sense as to the movement and the direction we've been going in. So what is our overall engagement result? Well, we are at a 3.99, actually a 3.994 out of a scale of 5. So the best you could do is 5. The worst you could do is 1, because they don't give you less than a 1, and I'll go over that in just a minute. So we're at a 3.994 3.94. Last year, we were at a 3.993. Okay? Now, there is a little bit of gyration here. So you can see we're above the overall UWG score by 0.11, which is a pretty good jump above the general score. But there's a little bit different here. Last year we were at 4.11 actually, but what they did in this year's survey is they took 6 questions out, and so then had to recenter that score without those 6 questions. And it just so happens that many of those 6 questions that they took out, our division probably it affected us proportionally or disproportionately because those were items that were related to a little more to the student-related parts of what we do as an institution and the involvement that happens with students. So it's okay that they've taken those out. It kind of swishes the score a little bit, and now we'll be recentered on this. It's really more about your work environment than about the service you provide to students now because of the change in those questions. So anyway, we've done pretty well. We maintained, even with the essentially over the institution in our division, above what the rest of the institution is, and that's a good thing. But still a little bit elusive. That 4.0 is a little bit elusive, so we're going to keep working on this. So a little bit about the methods. Again, that's the first part is about the 6 items that dropped off of the engagement piece from last year. So there are, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to highlight some areas that are very positive, and then I'm going to highlight some areas that are maybe that we need to work on or are opportunities. And then I'm going to look a little bit through here at, okay, so what happened last year? What are the action items that we put together as a division, so even in the department level? What are those action items? What were they meant to affect? And how did they actually affect the scores on the Engage West survey? So you can see a little bit of, okay, so when you pay attention to something, did it actually affect anything? Just a little, I'm going to go through some general themes, going to go through then the timeline. You'll see this later on too, but essentially what's going to happen from here on out in terms of divisional level things and departmental level things and what you're going to see in the future. This is just a little bit about the scale again, 1 to 5. If we look at this, we think a 3.5 or better is actually pretty good, right? That if you're above the median on this. The methodology is we're going to look at the highest and lowest scores to examine those themes and then those specific actions. We're going to help drill down on those things that are greatest strengths and opportunities. And remember, this is an aggregate of the entire division scores. So all of the scores from everybody in the division roll up through the immediate supervisor, the immediate manager or departmental level leader, the institution level leader, which is the AVPs, and then also to the senior leader. And that's kind of the language you'll see throughout some of this. So again, we did pretty well. We have more than 2/3, or about 2/3 of our items are 4.0 or greater. And if you think about the scale of anything above a 3.5 is very good, anything above a 4 is excellent. So we're doing really well that almost 2/3 of our items are a 4.0 or better. 11 items were below the UWG average for that item. So there are 11 items across our survey that actually are below the institution mean for that same item. We're going to take a look at those. I won't look as much in here about those, but and try to tease out why some of those are. But only 4 items of this entire survey for our division fell below a 3.0. Only 4 items. So again, I think that is an indication that things are moving. Can anybody guess what those 4 items were about? Pay. Yeah, of course they were, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about pay in this too. But some of the items that we surpassed UWG significantly in: investment in professional development, fair treatment. If you remember, some of you were around 2 years ago, the treatment was actually an issue in our division, and so we've done some great things there. Department leadership and clarity of departmental mission and goals. And you're going to start to see a theme as we go through this in some of the strengths. So you can't read all these, my guess, but the next slide will give you a better sense of what these are in words. But these are the highest items. The highest item we have is a 4.6. These are the 10 highest items down to a 4.4. Again, these are the areas that are really, really excellent. And I'm going to go to the next slide. I know some people are still reading this, but the next slide is easier to read. And these are the same 10 items. Same 10 items. Now I want you to take a look at that, and the word department comes up in 8 of those 10 items, right? And so you are most connected at the department level, right? You do most of your work at the department level, and this is really showing the strength of our departments. So this is good news, because your leaders have been away at LDIs 4 times a year for the last 2 years, doing work that leads us to better departmental scores, because they're then improving their leadership. They are working hard at what's happening at the departmental level, making sure that they're representing you well. And that's starting to show up now in our highest scores on the Engage West survey. And so things are progressing like they probably should. In the past, the departmental scores have been very good, but again, they really are showing up this year, and that's a great thing. So a couple others in there. Kyle Muir is helping to move UWG in a positive direction. My work is important to the success of UWG. Some of those are somewhat, my work is in my department, so therefore that's even somewhat departmental related. And you see along the side there, that's the difference between 15 and 16. All of those, even though they were great last year, they even went up some more this year. So that's great. There's only one that didn't. And again, that's not significant there. It went from a 4.5 to a 4.4. It's still in the top 10. So that's pretty good. So this is where our technology issues are going to take us out to the internet. We're going to give you an opportunity to do a poll. Okay? So what I want you to do. So what we want you to do, as this pulls up, we want you to text the word SLINGRELL to the number 22333. So pull up 22333 and text the word Lingrell to that, SLINGRELL. Or you can go to pollev.com/Lingrell, and that will be on the web. You can do it there if you don't want to use your texting minutes or whatever, data plan. Okay? And And so what I'd like you to do for this one, we're going to see the results as they come up. We won't spend that much time, but we'll see them. And so answer the question, what are some of the things that your department does well? What are some of the things your department does well? We just said the departments are some of the strongest pieces of the Engage West survey and the questions around that. And so what are some of the things that your department does well? And you can, no huge paragraphs or dissertations, but some comments around it. Okay, so tell me that someone has submitted something and it's just not showing up there. Okay, great. And we may need to move on if the technology isn't quite working the same way that we even want it on the internet. So.
It's slow.
Very slow. Oh, dip day. That's a great thing to have. Okay, so technology is slow. Very good. So you see, yeah, right, FYU Box. Well, of course. Hashtag FYU Box. So you can see some of the things that you're saying, these are the reasons why you might have given that kind of a rating for your department. Okay, so we will capture all of these as they've come in. You see some of them on the screen, we'll capture all of them, and we'll make sure we get those out to you. Okay? Supporting students, programming for students, excellent service, professional development opportunities. Great. So you get the idea that we're doing a lot at the department level, and you already know what some of those great things are. Okay, so some of the division's greatest strengths, we already talked about these. Highest items, 8 of the 10 are at the department, and 8 of those 10 moved up from last year. So even the strong things that we had from last year, they're even stronger now, so we're working hard on that. Compared to the institution, 90% of the items are higher by an average of 0.17. So a lot of our items are even higher than the institution in these 10 items, right? So that's a good thing. And 5 of the 10 items were among the largest differences from the institution. So how do we differentiate ourselves from other divisions and other scores? So here are some of those differences. Again, a lot of department leader there. These are the same items. This is just how they compare to the institution. Okay, and you'll have access to this PowerPoint as we go later on. So we have a second poll here, and this one is going to ask, yep. So those of you that have already logged in, you don't have to log in again. You just have to now give an answer. How do you impact UWG's success? Now, not your department, but you individually. How do you impact the whole success of UWG? Again, if you haven't logged in, 22333. Okay, you can start to see some of these come up. If you want to do it via the web, pollev.com/Lingrell. So passion, strong work ethic, I lead my team, policies and processes. Is that someone from the registrar's office? Expect him. Caring about others, keeping the campus healthy and well, leadership. Teamwork makes dream work.
Oh, okay. So that's your line.
Okay, that's Clint's line. Whoever used that, it's Clint's. Okay. So again, we'll do the same thing. We'll give you these results after they're gone through, but we want to keep moving on. Student empowerment, individual student connections, mentoring students and grads, friendly with coworkers, I care about our students. Sorry, we're having to go back and forth with this. Okay, so action plans. So last year we did the survey, and each department had to submit specific actions to address the areas within their departments that were some of the opportunities that we were experiencing to create better engagement. And so in November, we did a follow-up survey and kind of found out where we were along those. Your director got that information, may have shared it with you. And then that was the midpoint that we're talking about on the slide. And then, of course, this survey then kind of re-looks at some of those things. So we had an opportunity then to take all of the information from last year's survey in terms of identifying those opportunities division-wide, looking at them at the midpoint, and then also then seeing how that had changed in this current survey. And that's what we're going to do next. So 25% of the actions were directly related to increasing engagement and connection at the departmental level. So when we gathered all of those action plans, 25% of all of our division's actions were related to those two things and specific questions on the survey. And then another 22% referenced communication or efficacy of communication or something around how you were being communicated with or how we were communicating. And what we're going to do there is look at 2015 to 2016 and a general increase in the items. So you can see the big picture. These are all the items related to the department and some of the items that were related to the leadership. And you can see that overall there were changes. The gray lines are the change in 2016 over 2015. And so, they were, most of them were pretty high to begin with, but then in the action plans, we even did better in some of those items. Here's another chart that shows this is around the issues of communication. Again, this is aggregating all of that information together across the whole division. And some of these changed slightly. Now, they look, some of them like the middle one, or the second one in there says 3.9 and 3.9. Really, that's there are 4 decimal points, and that's why you're seeing that it's maybe slightly different. But again, pretty much the same. 3.3 to 3.4, 3.8, just a little slight jump there. And some of the issues we want to talk about, like the right information gets to the right people at the right time. That's actually one of our 10 lowest, and we're going to talk about that later. But still, it's 3.4. So it was meant to be changed a little bit. There were some action items to change that, and lo and behold, it did change somewhat. So the major themes of kind of the positive pieces around the whole division. Improvement of areas in communication, trust, and transparency. What I was struck with, I'll talk about that later, but I was struck with in 2014, issues of communication, trust, and transparency. Those were the top issues that we had to deal with. And we made some progress on those. There's very real impact at the departmental level. You can see that 8 out of 10 said something about the department. That's great. We really want that to happen. The next one, what we pay attention to gets impacted. And I think that's one of the biggest stories of this entire Engage West process for this year. In that last year, we noticed things, we put action plans in place to be able to address those things, and lo and behold, there was an impact. And I think we can take that lesson going out on the things that we still need to address, and the things that we still need to pay attention to. And then finally, there's a general sense that we're headed in the right direction. Again, when about 2/3 of them are above a 4.0, I think you can take some pride in that. So this is another thing that was in last year's rollout. It's about senior leadership, right? We talked a lot about senior leadership and some of the scores that were related to that. So what I wanted to show you was 2 graphs. One of them is on the left, and that shows the difference from the 2014 results. So the change in those items up there, I think highly of the senior leader. Senior leader is sincere in wanting to know how I feel. When we're talking about senior leader last year, we were talking about Dr. Marrero and me. When we're talking about senior leadership this year, you had an opportunity just to talk about me. So that is a singular item this year. It's not combined. That was a change in the survey. So good progress in these areas, difference from 2014, but the other one here, which are below the line, are the difference from the institution in 2016. So still need to make some progress on these items compared to the rest of the university, the other vice presidents, essentially, right? And so wanted to show you that, still need to make some progress. I really like the last one, the darkest blue line. The most progress we've made is that I want to help us move in a positive direction. I certainly do want to move us in a positive direction, and now it's beginning to be seen across the division. So thank you for that. So now let's change over to the lowest divisional items. And this is, you've already said it, somewhat what you would expect, right? There are issues around pay here. I'm paid adequately for the level of work I do. My pay is fair. My pay keeps pace with the cost of living. My pay is fair when compared to similar colleagues. But there are some other pieces in here too that are more climate related or work-life balance related. So the right information gets to the right people at the right time. Now I have to admit, I don't really know what that question means. But I'm hoping that you'll be able to help through your rollouts in your department. Also give us information, give me information about what that really means. Policies are applied fairly to all faculty and staff. The university is consistent in handling issues. So these are climate issues. These are climate and work-life balance issues. Staffing levels in the department are appropriate for the workload. The perennial website being helpful, right in there too, right? That's a difficult one. I think we may be just about a month away from people seeing some real progress on the website. I guess June 12th, they will roll out 40 new websites. And those 40 new websites are related to 95% of all university traffic through the website. Okay, so you'll start to see some changes, I think, even in that item. UWG is effective at retaining valuable people. So we're going to ask some questions about this in your poll everywhere, in your rollouts, about these specific items, because some of these items are going to show up on your departmental piece too, because you've indicated as a division, these are the items that are keeping you from being as engaged as what you could be, right? Not that you're not engaged, but you might be a little more engaged if we address some of these items. So here's another poll. I'm going to get you active again. And so the first one of these is, what makes UWG ineffective at retaining valuable people? So because we're not actually going to read through all of them, want to be a little bit sensitive to people so they feel like what they're going to put up on there or what they're going to send in is accurate and honest. So we're not going to show them to you as they come up this time. We'll still have them, we'll still capture them, and we will share them with you afterwards. But we want to make sure we get some good feedback on this one. So please go ahead and share your response to that. We'll give you a couple minutes to do that. But what makes UWG ineffective at retaining valuable people? And what I did was turn that question around, right? It really, that isn't the way that the question is on the survey, but this is the intent in terms of getting feedback from you about that. So what is it that makes us ineffective at retaining valuable people? And if you have more than one, that's okay. We'll chronicle all of them. Okay, so you'll still have a little bit of time as this goes on, and then the next, when we activate the next one, is when you won't be able to do anything on this one anymore. So these are then in a graphic form, those 10 that were already up there, in terms of the lowest level items. Now remember, I want to put this in context. I want to make sure this is in context. These are the lowest items, but still, they're mostly in the 3s, right? Some are as much as 3.4, and we already said that a 3.5 is good, right? So don't want you to take too much out of this, but I want you to realize these are still the lowest items. We need to work on them. We need to address them, right? And again, they were in that chart, and you can see we made a little bit of even difference on them across the year, but not very much, right? Haven't done a whole lot on these, even though we've worked a little bit on them. So there's another one there, another poll, and this one is, what are some ways the university is inconsistent in the way it handles issues for all employees? So one of the items was that the university is inconsistent, specifically around policies and the way we handle employees. So what are some of those ways, right? So sometimes when we answer these questions, there's a specific thing in our mind. Okay, I know an inconsistency. So I'd like to know from you, what are some of those ways, what are some of those specific ways that are inconsistent? I'd like you to also think about, okay, is that inconsistent across our departments in our division, or is it just inconsistency across the university? And how much of that can you really take? Because being a faculty member is much different than being a staff member. And is there a little bit of play that there's natural inconsistency in this, right? So what are some ways the university is inconsistent in the way that it handles issues for all employees? And that item is specifically, though, about the university. Okay, does everybody feel like they've had an opportunity there? We're going to have a little more time because I'm going to go through a few more slides here. So what are the greatest opportunities? Well, the lowest items absolutely center around pay. 60% of the items are related to pay directly or indirectly. So 60% of those 10, so 6 out of those 10 are either directly or indirectly related to pay. So we've got to do something about that. We've been trying to do some things about that, right? We have some limitations at the university system level. We have some limitations at the institution level. You know, there are issues of, as a leader, you always have to kind of walk a very thin line between, do you hire more people because people are concerned about the amount of work they're doing, or do you increase the salary of the people you have? Because sometimes there's not enough money to do both of those things, right? And so we have to be kind of sensitive to that. But obviously, no question, over 3 years of survey, the answers about pay are up there. No question. The message is absolutely heard at the senior leadership level. And if it wasn't heard, you wouldn't have experienced over these last 3 years about $7 million total in pay increases across the whole university. So we're paying attention to this. It just takes time to do it, but we're going to even work harder. And I think there are probably issues around this that are not actually dollar pay issues. They're more work-related issues. And so we're going to explore some of those things. Even of that, 5 of those 10, their scores actually moved up from last year. So some of those were in the bottom 10 last year too, but the scores moved up, but they stayed in the bottom 10 because those are the lowest scores, right? And so have to pay attention to that. And 3 of those items have remained static and have been in both years. Again, that is clear indication. Those are the items we need to look at and need to work on. So a little bit about the difference from institutional scores. Again, you can see the difference there on the side. We are mostly the same on these items across the university. So we are not exponentially different, either positive or negative, related to the institution on these items. And again, that's not too much of a surprise. So I'm not sure. Yeah. So this is one more. I don't know if this is the last one or not. So the last, this one is, what aspects of policy are applied differently between faculty and staff? So one of the items up there is that faculty and staff are treated differently. And specifically in policy. So the way we ask people to do things, the rules around how we work, the nature of how we direct and manage people, that's the policy piece, that's the procedure piece. And so what aspects of policy are applied differently between faculty and staff? In every survey, from the beginning until now, there have either been comments or there have been actual data items that have related to this concept of staff being treated differently than faculty. In this last survey, what they did is they actually spread those two apart in terms of the items that they actually answered on the survey. So there was a logic within the survey. If you said you were a faculty member, you got some questions. If you said you were a staff member, you got different questions, right? Because the nature of your engagement with the university is different if you're a faculty member or you're a staff member. And that's why they did it, which I agree to. I like that concept because it is much different. But there are some things that as a body of employees that you may be treated differently than what faculty are, even though on those items you should be treated the same. So for instance, let me give you one that doesn't exist. If you had a different benefits package, medical benefit package than faculty would, right? There are institutions that do that their faculty may have a better benefit package. That doesn't happen in West Georgia. That's consistent across all employees, including vice presidents. Okay, so you had an opportunity to answer that. I think we have one more later on, I can't remember. So let's go ahead and go to the PowerPoint. So these are some of the major themes, and I think this is the biggest takeaway of today. The first one. There's a shift away from barriers of trust, communication, and transparency, and a shift to issues of climate and work balance. 2014, when we did the first survey, almost devastated me because it was all about trust, communication, transparency. I thought I was doing a pretty decent job in these things, and the results didn't necessarily bear that out. So you work hard at making those happen, right? You do things, you create relationships, you develop relationships, you create direction, you do things. And that's what I did during that time. And so I'm very proud that we have gotten to a place where those issues, trust and transparency and communication, are not in our bottom. They're in the middle. You know, they're not in the top because, again, they haven't moved that far. But they're not in the bottom ones now. And so that's a big, big change. Now we can work on, now that we have that level of trust, or maybe I should say we don't have that level of distrust, now we can work on the things that are important to make your job even better. And those are issues of climate and work-life balance. What I'm seeing out of the results of this survey, and I've done a little bit of study on it right now, we've only had the results for about 2 weeks. I'm seeing that we need to pay attention, I need to pay attention, and the leaders need to pay attention to the issues around how much you're doing in your actual job. Is that related directly to your job description, and is the money appropriate for that job? That's a big thing that we're going to be working on in this next year. I'm not revealing any action items yet because we still have a little bit of analysis to do. But that's a big thing. Now we're going through the Simpson study. We're about ready to have some information on that. This whole Fair Labor Standard thing that just came out this week is related somewhat to that. So we're working hard on all of those pieces. But still, at the end of the day, if you're doing things that aren't in your job description and that is more work than what you should be doing at your pay level, that takes away from your engagement at our institution. And I don't want that. I don't want to do that in my job. I want to stay in my lane and be able to get the job done, because then we can predict how much it takes to actually serve our students and the number of students that we have. Pay continues to be the thing most impacting engagement. When we work with Studer, they say all the time, well, pay is always the lowest, and that's okay, but we don't have to ignore it as something that we can try to impact so that it creates better engagement, right? Just because it's the lowest, then we don't have a whole lot of control of what the Board of Regents is going to do in terms of pay raises with the governor or the legislature. That doesn't mean we can't do things internally to make the value of what you do and the value of your position better, regardless of additional pay that's going in there. So let's talk a little bit about the timeline for the rest of the story, right? You've just gotten kind of the initial blush, the initial information of where we are at the division, top 10 great things we can celebrate, the bottom 10 things that we can use as opportunities for improvement. We got a little bit of information, kind of rollout type of things through the poll everywheres, but this process continues, and it continues then at your departmental level. And when you do your departmental rollout, there will be much more of that interaction, much more of that discussion to get to the action items so we can affect this. And I've asked the directors not only to roll out just their piece, just the things in your department, but also to attack a little bit some of the reasons, some of the information about how we get to some of these items, especially the top or the bottom 10. How do we impact those so that we can get a higher engagement? And I've asked them to do their rollouts by July 27th. So we have some time. Summer is a difficult time for many of our departments. It's a slow time for some of our other departments, if you can imagine that. Some of you that are not in slow departments, if you can even imagine, this might be a slow time. But this is the time then for you to do your rollouts. All of your directors, all of your managers have been trained to do rollouts, and so there's going to be a consistency this year, a little better consistent. And then we're going to have, at the division level, a discussion about what we can do to actually improve some of these things. And those are the action items. So you will do action items within your department. Those then will be submitted up to the division. We'll have some discussions at the division level. Again, I kind of imagine they're going to clump like they did last year. My guess is they may clump around these issues of work-life balance and the amount of work we're doing and the pay and those kind of things. And then we will have divisional action items by September 1. So as that information comes up from the departments, as the departments have their action items, then we will take that at the division level in the leadership team, extended leadership team. When I do my role, the divisional rollout to the extended leadership team that has that conversation in it, then that's when we will actually have action items at the divisional level. Now this year's different than last year. We were good playmates last year in that we had all of our departments submit action items, and we chronicled all of those in one spreadsheet. We gave those to the president, showed him that we were making progress on those. We'll do a report on those now because we have new results. But there were some departments and some divisions at the university not in student affairs that didn't do rollouts and didn't have action items. Well, the president has made it really, really clear this year that will not happen again, because you can't have overall institutional engagement and improvement if you're not consistent about how that information is being disseminated and the action items to do the improvement. So in our last LDI, he even talked about people getting on board, and if you're not on board, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And he talked to managers in that way, really for the first time that I've ever heard in higher ed, in terms of this is the train, it's left the station. If you're not on it, then you may want to consider this is a place for you to be, because this is the expectation of our leadership in our institution. So he talked to us that way. He was talking to us as leaders about that. And so that is an expectation this year, and I think we're going to have huge levels, high levels of compliance, because usually when the president says those kind of things, people listen. So I feel really, really good about that movement. So that's the story. That's the story. In this session, you've had an opportunity to give a little bit of feedback. Again, I apologize for the technical issues. I really appreciate our support up here. Let's give her a hand. She did a great job at that. But hopefully it didn't detract too much from the actual message. Things are going okay. Are there places that we can go and improvements that we can make? Absolutely. And we'll make those, and at your department level, they may be a little different than they are at the division level. But what you should be experiencing is a leadership that is making progress and trying to make progress on these issues. Are all of them going to work? No. They don't work, try something else. But we're going to make progress on these issues. We value you, I value you so much in what you do. We are seen as an exemplary division because of the great work that you do. We would not have received the 2 highest Best of the West awards at the university this year, April and Danny. If it wasn't for the exemplary work that you do. We're going to put up, because we missed it a little earlier because of the technical issues, there's 2 things. We want to do the news and notable. You got that? She's getting it up. So I want you to stay around long enough to take a look at those. I'm going to give those about 5 minutes. And then at the very end, and again, you don't have to stay around for this. We're going to send these out to you. I've done some snippets from the comments. And they will roll and run up on the screen. And it was the comments that answered really 3 questions. What is happening good? What are some opportunities for improvement? And then who would you recognize? Who would you recognize that is doing an awesome job? I have been so impressed by those comments. Again, I think the prompts helped because they kind of directed those comments. But they are, for the most part, ready for prime time. We can send those out directly to you in the comment form that we got them because they were just so excellently done. And what I'm most proud of, frankly, is that in our comments about who would you recognize, we're recognizing people across the whole institution. It's not just people that are in our departments, not just people in our divisions, in our division, but we're recognizing people outside of our division that are really making a difference. And if we continue that level of connection and recognition, we will continue to have the great progress that we've had. So thank you very much for your attention for this. I'll be sending out the full results and comments probably tomorrow so that you can have all of the information and make sure that if you see things in there that somehow I didn't pick out, drop me an email. Say, hey, what about this thing? Happy to have that information. So please take a look at the news and notable, and then we'll get the comments up in a few minutes. So thank you.
Obviously, a lot to celebrate.
One second, everybody. I got one announcement for you all. Those of us on this half of the room may have heard a commotion that's going on over here. The orientation leaders are hard in their performance rehearsals for the Life on Campus performance that happens during orientation. And the reveal, the premiere for all of our division is tomorrow at 3:30. And if you would like to come, we are more than happy to host everyone here. We will have enough chairs, but it's totally optional, obviously. But they would love an audience to reveal their show to. We will be here tomorrow at 3:30. Just want to put it out there.
Awesome. Now, these are just 5 or 6 out of the many of each of the areas of each of the 3 areas. But again, very impressed. Feel very good about these comments. Okay, so it has run 1 cycle through. It'll continue to do that while people are here. There are so many more comments in each of the sections. You'll see those, especially the ones that have people's names attached to them. You'll see those, and if your name wasn't on the screen today, there's a good chance it might even be in the comments. So, thank you for coming today.
Why did she die?